everybody, and welcome. I'm Brian, marketing manager here at Kickbox. I am joined by my colleague, Lauren Meyer, our local deliverability expert, and our VP of Industry Relations. Today, we're going to be discussing what is email deliverability and why we should care. We've been making a lot of cool content in our email deliverability Unfiltered series, and we realized in doing that, we haven't really taken a step back to really understand, to help our audience understand the fundamentals of email deliverability and really, all the tools that they need to improve it. So we're going to go ahead and start off by defining deliverability, right? It's one of those things that, I think the best way to define it is to understand the terms, right? And to not get those confused. I know as marketers, you probably heard this all the time, Lauren, we get terms confused, or we use delivery and deliverability interchangeably, which isn't necessarily correct and can have an impact on how well we're understanding our email program's health. So can you kind of talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. This is definitely one of those terms that gets confused very often. So there is a big difference between the delivery rate and the deliverability rate. So first, we'll talk about the delivery rate, which is also sometimes referred to as an acceptance rate. And this one confirms that your mail has been accepted into the mailbox provider's servers, right? Mailbox providers are ones like Gmail, Hotmail, Yahoo, the corporate domains that you're sending to. And, the mailbox providers actually send that message back to the sender that confirms whether the email has been accepted into their servers or rejected. And if you're using an ESP to send your mail, they can actually report on that delivery rate. And then the deliverability piece is what people refer to as measuring inbox placement. And this happens after that point. And mailbox providers do not send any feedback that lets you know if your message landed in the inbox or the spam folder. High delivery rates won't tell you how your contacts are engaging with your mail or provide context on how much of your brand's mail is actually making it to the inbox of your recipients. So to get context on that, you really need to use your engagement signals. And we're going to cover those probably, I think, in a later episode. So stay tuned for that.
We are. Absolutely. Yeah. We have a whole series lined up. So I'm excited about that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's a really good point that you brought up. Just because something was delivered doesn't necessarily mean it confirms inbox placement. And that's really critical to understand when you're assessing how well your email programs are doing. So that's a really good point. But, the thing is, it seems kind of nuanced. It may seem kind of small or nitpicky to differentiate those two. But really, there's a lot of reasons why marketers should pay attention to these things, because you've been on that side too. As marketers, we just want to market, right? We want to drive our engagement up.
For sure.
But it's really important that we understand these fundamental practices that sit in between those key players of our recipients, us, and our ESP and our mailbox provider. So why, what are those main reasons you'd say why we should, as marketers, really pay attention to this stuff?
Well, for one, I would say because email has an average return on investment of about 42 to 1. So that's $42 US for every $1 that you're spending on email. Not bad, right? So I would say, over all of the things that you can think about with deliverability, quality over quantity is so key here. Because if recipients aren't seeing your messages in the inbox, then they're not going to have the ability to engage with those emails or your brand. And so your ROI is not going to be anywhere near that average. I think we should also probably think about some of the time and effort wasting scenarios here as well. So, keep in mind, first of all, that it is much easier to stay in the inbox than it is to dig yourself out of that spam folder. So, while you might get a nice sales boost from an overly aggressive campaign that you send, if you oversell and you set people's expectations too high, that can lead to what the mailbox providers are going to see as a spike in complaints. And that's going to drive your mail to the spam folder, or could actually end up with it getting blocked completely. So, sure, you made a little bit of extra money on that one campaign, but your ROI may suffer in the long run from this. So you need to consider whether your company is interested in those kind of quick wins with email, or if you're really looking to have long-term success, because very rarely can you actually have both of those things. I think we should also think about some of the less direct costs that come from deliverability issues. The first one of these is the time that you're going to spend mitigating the issue with the mailbox providers if you're going to the spam folder or getting blocked, and maybe also with your ESP if your stats have gotten to a point where they've rate limited or suspended your account. That can be a very painful and slow process. The second one to think about is customer complaints about missing emails. This means your support team will be busier than usual and potentially could require them to work some overtime to handle that extra ticket load. So that can be a very, very big and kind of unexpected cost for your company. And then lastly, you may have to hire a consultant to dig you out of that hole called the spam folder. These deliverability people can be very expensive, and that process can be a long one. So really try to just consider those costs as well. It's not just about how much money you made from that particular campaign that you saw.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. If you've been through that fire drill before, you know what it's like. You understand that motivation of trying to get out of the spam folder or trying to get off of a block list. It's definitely painful, but it's good motivation, right? So sadly, sometimes often that's the motivation that we have for really learning about this stuff. But there's a different side to it. If you do get it down, I think there's a lot of rewards on the engagement metrics side if you take the diligence to really understand deliverability and really understand all the intricacies that you need to paint that picture for yourself, even though it might not be that simple, so
yeah, totally. And I think it's important for everybody to remember that mailbox providers are focusing on recipient engagement much more than they did in years past, right? So they're looking at both positive forms of engagement like opens and clicks and replies, but they're also very heavily focused on the negative forms of engagement like user complaints, deleting emails without opening them, or even just like a lack of engagement, right? The days of kind of scraping or purchasing a list or continuing to just send to people simply because they signed up but haven't taken the time to unsubscribe are over. You really need to follow those engagement signals and figure out who your active audience is. By focusing on creating emails that your readers want to engage with and building an audience who finds value in the email content that you're sending, the mailbox providers are very clearly going to be able to see that your emails belong in the inbox, and they're going to continue to deliver them there. And then once you're consistently hitting that inbox, thanks to following those industry best practices and monitoring your stats to ensure that you're continuing to target the right audience, you'll be able to build a larger and more qualified email list, which will inevitably just lead to more revenue for your company, again, for that long-term success over time.
Yeah, it's like, okay, that's the foundation for everything. You're hitting the inbox consistently. Okay, that means you're getting more opens, more clicks, more conversions. So, it really, long-term, it creates a lot of revenue down the line.
Yeah.
And it builds that relationship, that reputation. And, it's honestly, it's not that exciting for some people. Everybody wants to hear like, eat your vegetables and you'll be healthy and live a long life, right? But that's kind of, it's kind of like one of those keystone habits or cornerstone habits. What does Charles Duhigg call it? If you do this thing, or if you master this area, you're going to see a lot of rewards later on down the line, way more than if you went for those short-term gains,
for
like
sure.
you're talking about. So, we understand the importance of deliverability and understanding it, but now it's important for us to understand what are those key factors. I know there's a lot, right? I'm asking like a massive question here, but what affects deliverability? What are those, like give us a 40,000 foot view. What are those key pillars that affect our deliverability?
Sure. Yeah. And as you mentioned, there are literally hundreds of factors that do go into determining if your message is going to be delivered to the inboxes of recipients or not. It's not, I wish it were as simple as just one little number like that sender score to rule everything, but it really just is, it's anything, farther from the truth really there. Each mailbox provider is using a different sort of algorithm to make their filtering decisions, but at a high level, they are working to ensure that each message that they deliver is safe for the recipients and also wanted by those recipients. So by focusing on a few key factors, including reputation, authentication, sending infrastructure, list collection, and management, as well as the content that you're actually sending to people, you should be setting yourself up for a solid foundation for inbox placement. So we're going to be digging into a lot of these elements that I just mentioned in later episodes, but I just kind of want to give a little bit of a summary or a detail right now quickly. So first one is reputation. And so really here focus on your sending IP and your sending domain to maintain a solid reputation. There's lots of different aspects you can take this in. We'll dig into this one much greater detail later. Authentication, we're also not going to spend a lot of time on this today because it can get very, very technical. So for now, really just think of these as your passport, your driver's license, or some other form of ID that tells mailbox providers exactly who you are and allows them to start to have a little bit more confidence that the mail that you're sending is legitimate. So this is, probably considered very standard for mailbox providers at this point. Sending infrastructure, you're going to want to make sure that your ESP or whatever internal mailing system that you're sending through is properly configured to create and to send your emails, as well as to effectively manage all of the engagement data, including those positive activities such as opens and clicks, as well as managing the events that are related to those negative impacts, right? So the bounces, unsubscribes, and complaints. Moving over to list collection and management, permission is so essential to sender reputation. So, sending to recipients who haven't signed up for your mail can have a huge impact on your engagement rates, right? So think, low opens, but also high complaints here. And so targeting people who signed up but have stopped engaging with your mail is almost just as bad. So really focus on building that list the right way, and then also targeting the people that continue to show signals of really enjoying the content that you're sending. And lastly is that content, right? This includes the subject line, the body, as well as the sender address, the friendly from name that you're using, and all of the links in your emails. All of the little bits and pieces that are in those email headers is included in your content. So you really have to think about all of those things, as part of the holistic view of deliverability.
Yeah, thanks for trying to describe your expertise in a few sentences. That's probably tough to do. But I'm kind of curious about, in your opinion, you've worked on the sender side before, you worked on the marketer side before. What are those things you think that are kind of misunderstood, or what are the things, or what are those factors you mentioned? What do you think are the ones that need more attention, or maybe just aren't as well understood as they should be?
Yeah. I think in my experience, the problems with data quality are typically the main drivers for inbox placement issues, right? So either you're collecting a list in the wrong ways, such as purchasing a list or scraping email addresses from the internet, that nice little intern that's always doing it, right? But these people did not opt in to hear from you. So if the email address actually exists, and it's not a spam trap, that recipient is much more likely to mark that mail as spam, or to just simply never engage with it in the first place. And both of those things are bad for deliverability. Other times you might see that data quality is an issue where it stems from people who actually did sign up for your mail, but they've since just lost interest. So while these people are not going to mark your mail as spam, so they're less impactful than those people that are marking as spam. They are completely just dead weight on your list, right? And mailbox providers such as Gmail are just so heavily focused on recipient engagement, and a lack of engagement is now starting to act as a negative form of engagement as well. So my suggestion is to cut those people from your list, or at the very least, just send to your inactives less than you do your actives, and focus on those recipients who are positively engaging with your emails and with your brand, because those are the ones that are really going to help you have a strong inbox placement, a consistent inbox placement.
Yeah. One thing that I actually just ran recently across an article about subject lines words that you should or shouldn't use in your subject lines, especially during the whole COVID thing. What's your opinion on that?
Oh yeah. Okay. This one, really gets me going. So, content absolutely does play a part in spam folder issues, right? So, the main things that this is driven by, though, are links within the body of your email that have a poor reputation, or, HTML emails that include nothing but images. There's no plain text that give mailbox providers a signal of kind of what your mail is about, what you're sending. I would say that age-old myth that messages are going to the spam folder simply because you used a word like free or COVID, that is completely false, right? While the use of those words might elicit a negative response from people, such as a spam complaint, if you're claiming that you're going to give something away for free, and then you have to, kind of make a purchase to get that free thing, it's not actually the word itself that's triggering the deliverability issue. It's the reaction. The recipient's response was negative, right? So if you think about your own inbox, how many subject lines do you have that include the word free or COVID? There's tons and tons of them. So it really is not just the word itself, it's the reputation, it's the age of the domain that you're sending from. It's so many other factors than just that simple word itself.
Yeah, I mean, it's maybe wishful thinking to think, okay, one word can or can't change the outcome of the success or failure of an email program, but really it's or email campaign rather, but really that's kind of good news, right? That means that we do have our foot on the gas pedal, we do have control, and it's really up to us as senders or as marketers to make sure that we understand what our audience wants, and and we're engaging with the right people, we have permission, all those things that you mentioned that are really fundamental to all of this. So
oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, and you know what, Brian, I think, before we wrap up this first episode, I think we should probably just spend a minute talking about the mail that email marketers and email recipients kind of never really think about and don't really get to see. There is a ton of email sent globally, and the internet is massive, right? There's so many people with email addresses. It's up to you as the marketer to show people that you're legitimate. And I want to give you a couple of examples here based on some facts that were previously shared by Google, just to give you a scope of all of those emails that you don't think about, right? So 50% of what Gmail receives on any given day is classified as spam by them. 50%, right? Half of the mail. They are also blocking about 10 million emails per minute. So massive amounts of volume that are coming their way. And they also receive more than 100 million phishing emails every single day. And about 2/3 of what they receive is a threat that they have never, ever seen before. So, with all of that really awful mail that's being thrown at those mailbox providers every single day, it's important for legitimate senders to differentiate themselves from those spammers and fraudsters by following the industry best practices that we've been talking about that help them collect a list of recipients who are super highly engaged with the content that you're sending, and they're taking actions that prove to the mailbox providers that they're actually loving their emails, right? It's kind of like that whole idea of, if a tree falls in the forest and nobody's there to hear it, does it make a sound? Yeah. Like, as far as the mailbox providers are concerned, it kind of doesn't make a sound. It didn't happen within their purview, so it doesn't really exist.
Yeah, I mean, it's mind-boggling, those stats that you mentioned about how much spam is sent and how important it is for us as legitimate senders, right? Of course, we love our email, we know that we're legit, but it's really up to us to make sure that we differentiate ourselves from those spammers, which make up the majority of email. That's just absolutely mind-boggling. And we can get frustrated as marketers when things change. But deliverability is one of those things that's just constantly evolving, constantly changing, and it requires us as legitimate senders to understand what those changes are, and and how to balance that relationship with the mailbox providers and your senders and your subscribers and readers. So there's a lot that we mentioned in this episode. One of the things you mentioned was reputation, and that's really the one of the main keys to consistent inbox placement and successful email programs. So in the next episode, we're going to be covering exactly that. What are those factors that go into your sender reputation? Lauren, I know, is super excited to dig into that.
Can't hide it. Yeah.
So, but that is a big subject to unpack, and we're gonna try to tackle it next time. We're gonna take it head on, and we cannot wait to share that with you all. So in the meantime, if you want to learn more about deliverability and and maybe increase your inbox placement for your organization, go to our blog at kickbox.com. Check out our Deliverability Unfiltered series that Lauren puts together. It's great. I learn a lot every time I read one of those articles. And we also have a deliverability suite of products that you can schedule a demo for if you're interested. So until next time, we'll talk to you again soon.
Bye, guys.